Do you think that full self-driving is going to be licensed by Tesla to other companies? I kind of think it will be because of
I think it
just the
will.
safety.
I think it will. I think over time it definitely will. There was a tweet that I made. Oh, when was it? It was I forget what it was. It was something about Facebook having a monopoly on something or other, or Google having a monopoly or something. But I made a tweet. It was something along the lines, today we're complaining about this software company having a monopoly. In 10 years, we're going to complain about Tesla FSD having a monopoly. And Elon replied, and he's like, accurate prediction. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so you're going to license this. Okay, got it. So over time, they definitely will. They have to have the hardware ready for outside manufacturers too. I think it's going to be paired with their self-driving hardware. I don't think it's just going to be or maybe I guess it doesn't have to be, as long as there's cameras, right? Like, how's that going to work? Like, I wonder if the AI is smart enough to account for different camera placements, different types of cameras. As I'm guessing, as long as it has a computer. But at that point, if you give them the computer for it, you're probably going to want to give them the cameras too, right? I'm just
Yeah,
trying to think about. Yeah.
I would just think from a keep it simple standpoint, like just give them the whole solution on that part. Give them the cameras, the full self-driving computer, and the software, so then Tesla doesn't have to be. Isn't even there's a liability from edge cases if the camera is placed a different place and the
Yeah.
AI processes it differently because it hasn't seen that situation before. Like I could see that being an issue.
Yeah. So then that means that the companies that license would then have to make sure that the way they manufacture their cars accommodates for that camera placement and the
Right.
wiring and the harnesses, which is going to dictate a lot of the rest of the manufacturing. And I wonder if at that point, like, do they just buy the whole thing from Tesla? Like this would be in a full self-driving thing. And I would love to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts about this. I've been sort of speculating about this thing where I think at some point this true robotaxi platform is not going to be a full like a entire solution that's going to be provided by Tesla, but it's going to be a maybe at first they'll have a self-driving thing with seats inside that face each other and it looks a certain way. But I'm thinking at some point they might just build a shell. And Sandy has talked about this box that you sell, and it's bare in the inside, but it has all the cameras, it has the battery, the drivetrain. Maybe the exterior is like, cyber looking.
Right.
And then you sell it to fleet runners, and the fleet runners decide how to configure the inside. And so that way you sort of license out the platform by just allowing fleet runners to just buy the shell, and then they can figure out what to do with it. How does that sound? What do you think about that?
I hadn't thought of it that way, and I completely agree.
Okay.
That to me makes a lot more sense to do, and it's not that inconsistent from Tesla's beginnings. One of the things that Tesla did at IPO was they had a big powertrain business. They were selling electric powertrains to Daimler and then to Toyota, and that was one of the things that they used to be. I mean, they weren't profitable, but to be losing less money. And it was definitely a part of the justification of why the stock would be worth anything at the IPO. So Tesla has a history of doing that in the past. And once their manufacturing is so much ahead of everyone, and they've vastly simplified the building the box of the car in this unboxed method with the continuously removing parts, with using the castings. That's a really, really interesting thought that you have. I really like that idea as a business model.
I just wonder, like, I come from the standpoint of Elon and those guys always talk about, the best part is no part. And then at that point, you're just outsourcing general assembly. You're like,
Right.
just here's the box. And then so if you remove 40% of basically it's going to be a significant percentage of the square footage of manufacturing the car and finish out the manufacturing of the car. If you can just stop right before general assembly and that thing operates and you just let other people figure this inside out, okay, just let them do it,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where and then that way you just crank them out. You just freaking crank them out, millions of units a month or a quarter. And you just let other people figure out how to tailor the inside. Because you think about, in a world where everything's self-driving in the next, hopefully 5 to 10 years, at least from Tesla, the internal configurations are going to be very drastic depending on what you want to use that solution for. You might want it for leisure. Somebody else might want it for work. Somebody else might want to freaking have a concert inside their self-driving van, have their drums and their guitars, or, somebody else could turn it into a hot tub. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
who knows what the possibilities are when you essentially have a house on wheels. And so people make their houses be anything. Why wouldn't people make their cars be anything, or whatever this unit of transportation is moving forward, right? So I don't know. That might be cookie crazy, but that's kind of where my head goes. Yeah.
I mean, they do that with aviation with like business jets. They
Exactly.
basically they sell the hull, and then it's vastly customized by whoever buys the airplane. So
Yeah.
there's even precedences in markets for that.
Exactly. It would be like Tesla is a new Boeing or Airbus. And then,
Yeah.
you can have your Virgin of autonomy. You could have your United of autonomy, your, God forbid, your Frontier of autonomy, like, or whatever. I'm joking around, obviously, but you could have something like that, right? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have, Lars was in aviation and they're talking about aviation methods. Now you have like my whole brain spinning right now because all of this could be possible.
Yeah.
Man, what a great conversation.
I just saw. I mean,
Yeah.
this. I'm wondering if anyone in the chat knows anything more about this, because this is brand new to me this morning. But that there's IDRAs at Lathrop.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how those are being used. So it's a really interesting idea that they're taking these lessons from EV manufacturing and all the improvements they've had of doing this for now over a decade, and going ahead and making it something that they're going to use in the mega pack manufacturing. And this is one of the reasons why Wall Street isn't giving a lot of credit to Tesla for energy yet, because for years, up and through last fall, their battery component and semiconductor chip constrained, and they couldn't really ramp the manufacturing. If you look at all those job openings for castings.
So a bunch of castings job roles in Lathrop.
Yeah,
were they just
they've
posted
been
this
there
morning?
since the fall, last
Since the
fall.
fall.
It's just like wasn't something that people have been talking about.
This one I'm curious because like how many, like when you think about Powerwall and Power Pack.
And then look at this one, controls engineer self-drive unit, Lathrop casting. So is there also some type of new vehicle that they're working on there? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Controls engineer. It could also be that manufacturing in Lathrop. I mean, maybe they have a separate building. I'm trying to think what was at Lathrop. I know we had that big warehouse, the global distribution center. Then you have this thing where it's the new Lathrop facility. I don't. What's interesting about this one is I wonder how much of the technology in a casting could be used in energy, right? Because all it really is just a closet. Like if I'm thinking about the Mega Pack 2, which
and
is going to be the
assemblies
big
of batteries. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So maybe the casting is streamlining the cabinetry in some form, or maybe like how the batteries are stored. I don't know.
And you can do castings on a much smaller scale than we think of, if like with the Model Y. Model Y, we're thinking of like this big structural component, but a casting can also just be to replace what used to be an assembly. So a much like just a better version of a part where you're replacing several parts together with a casting. In my mind, because we haven't actually heard of any large IDRAs, because those are being tracked, right? Like we're all wondering where that extra 9,000 ton IDRA is that went toward Asia, but nobody knows where it ended up. So
yeah. So it's not in Shanghai. People weren't able to track it to the Shanghai Gigafactory.
No, it to my knowledge, there's still an IDRA that is not confirmed to be a Tesla, but isn't confirmed to not be a Tesla.
Okay. So maybe a competitor bought one. Who knows? Maybe they're jumping on the Tesla train. There's a couple
that went, and one of them went to what I'm talking about. It went to a general parts manufacturer. So it does. So they're doing it. They will do some maybe structural castings with it, but they're also doing assemblies and some smaller parts with the casting machine as well.
It could also be. I wonder if maybe they might not necessarily maybe outsource the cast and just have it arrive to the factory so they can free up the square footage after a while and just have a company that just freaking casts for them. Just have a
Yeah.
remote location that just, and then you'll get boatloads of casts and they arrive, and then you kind of lean it through the manufacturing process instead of having the casting machine on site. I don't know. There's a bunch of different possibilities. I don't know which one's going to be more economical, but who knows?